I love things that are weird and play inside of the absurd. It's not a recent thing either. As a kid, I was always drawn to things like Courage the Cowardly Dog or Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. While one of those maybe didn't age as well, I still appreciate the anarchist energy of these kinds of subversions. And the older I've gotten, the weirder I've liked things to be. Here steps in Ace Team, a Chilean indie developer who have been out here developing weird games since 2009, beginning with their Xenoclash series. Clash Artifacts of Chaos is the third game in this universe, but you can play this without having any issues if you haven't played the others. I did, and while this may be my first Ace Team game, this sure as heck won't be my last. You're this funky dude. His name's Pseudo. He's kind of a warrior hermit, with a mostly bald head and scattered bits of hair. This isn't one of your hunky heroes of the past. Ace Team said they were trying to subvert the handsome hero taking out the quote ugly enemies trope. Pseudo is somewhat human, but like his name suggests, not quite. Trained by a callous parental figure and living out on his own, he's stoic and pragmatic. He doesn't need anybody, or so he thinks to himself, before hearing a song humming through the wind. Following the sound, he comes across an ogre-looking fellow who is challenging an old man to a fight. The man's grandson is this adorable little puffball on his shoulder, begging him not to participate. The ogre easily slaughters the old man, and you step in outraged. Avenging the man, feels good by the way, Pseudo scoops up the boy so he can take him to a city where he can be transported to his closest relative. But you soon find out that the boy has the power to take life from one thing and put it into another, and the ruler of this land is trying to capture him. So you decide to take the boy yourself. On the way, Pseudo and the boy bond. And I know what you're probably thinking, another dad game. While there hasn't been a shortage of this trope since The Last of Us, I urge you to look past that and into the heart of what this is going for. During the journey of Pseudo and the boy, I was enraptured, and a couple of times, I almost jumped out of my seat in excitement. By the end, I didn't want to leave the world, and felt a bit choked up. What you're getting here is a very entertaining, sometimes funny, but always philosophically heavy musing about community and looking out for others. This isn't a cheap imitation. It might look rough around the edges, but right under the surface is something special.
Assumed you'd want to unburden yourself.
You would burden yourself.
The little one is rude. Io likes it.
Clash takes place in the land of Xenozoic, where the citizens are bound by the rules of a dice game. Before a fight starts, it's the law of the land that you must accept this challenge if proposed to you. Each fighter puts up an artifact that will hinder their opponents if you're the winner. This could range from humiliation tactics to making them drink poison, or letting you get the first hit in, and some others. Whoever loses the dice game takes the penalty, and I find it really intriguing how Pseudo also feels bound to these rules even though he lives outside of society. The people here, while often ruthless, are described by Pseudo as simply scared and acting out under the limitations of their ruler. In many ways, this is an anarchist coming-of-age story about learning to buck against the powers that be. There's something extremely punk and subversive about this world, and I loved being drip-fed information and piecing things together about these different communities. Ace Team also opted away from hyperrealism. They chose a striking comic book-like quality for the visuals that'll stand the test of time. I've always been more of a fan of stylized art that keeps games like BioShock or Dishonored still looking good to this day. Plus, things just look weird in this game, and I don't mean that as an insult. I'm so tired of fighting basic rats, dogs, and humanoids, but the enemies and NPCs in Clash are a breath of fresh air. There's an oddball element here that feels lifted from the pages of Psychonauts or the Oddworld games. Maybe it's because I grew up on things like that, but I love these stranger projects that are bursting with heart. When it comes to fighting these enemies, you actually have a lot at your disposal. I know some of you checked this out on Steam, saw the Soulslike tag, and moved on, but this feels more in the vein of God of War 2018, while also being unique from that. Most of what you're doing here is brawling with your fists and kicks by using different combos. You unlock different stances for fighting as you play that can help. The Boxer stance is a good all-rounder, Mammoth stance will give you heavier blows to mess with, a Spear stance will give you a lot of range, and there's a handful of other fun stances that become available. You have different attacks when you dodge, a charge up for extra damage, and special abilities like an uppercut or spin kick. You can use weapons, but they break after a little bit of use, so I saved those for big fights. You don't drop your stuff when you die like in Souls games. Instead, you become a wooden version of yourself and have to get back to your body to return to the day and your quest. But also while you're in your wooden form, you can go through thorny paths that would tear you up otherwise. And it's definitely worth wandering around like a little Roomba, because they've hidden crafting items everywhere. I'm pretty averse to most crafting in games, but this was extremely inoffensive and simple to do. And depending on what materials you use, you'll get a different effect for your health potions. You have a stamina bar that you need to keep track of because when it's empty you take extra damage. The parry is weird. I don't think I ever fully got the timing right, but a successful parry sets you up to eventually use a powerful attack where it pulls you into first person and you can just wallop on enemies. I love how fresh everything stayed throughout. Even the dice game was unintrusive because it can often be ignored if you don't care to try and get the advantage. I often did it though because I found it pretty fun even if I was really bad at it. Plus, it's nice to get the extra boon when you do win because they don't always fight fair. Enemies will gang up on you. Overall, this took me a bit under 20 hours to see everything I wanted to, and I could have easily spent 20 more if there was more new stuff to see. When you think you've seen all of Clash's visual tricks, it'll surprise you with a new creature or NPC to interact with. More games should be stylized. Realistic graphics can be cool, but I'll take a strong art direction like this over that almost any day. Oh, and the tunes by Austral Music are awesome. Lots of them are vocal and orchestral based, and I can see myself coming back to this for future writing sessions. As for negatives, I will say there was some funkiness here that gets annoying. A few crashes did happen, luckily never during anything important or difficult, but enough to bug me. It was way too easy to get lost. Clash is very pleasing to look at, but the bigger areas can kind of blend together and make it difficult to get around. There's some jankiness like spawning with the camera stuck inside the body of Pseudo, or not being able to fit through some gaps. A kind of half-good, half-negative is the shortcuts you unlock throughout. They're cool, but I don't think the game was ever difficult enough that any of them felt really necessary or helpful. This last one isn't one of my negatives, but I saw others complaining about the boy repeating certain lines over and over, like about being cold or getting bug bites. What you can do for that is get Boy a little jacket, or a hat to block mosquitoes. It's an easy solution that's also easily missed, but I think it's a cute incentive to have you try out cosmetics. With all said and done, I thought I was going to get an intriguing yet extremely flawed and janky experience. Instead, I came out with one of my favorite third-person action games. I think it's absolutely criminal that this wasn't showing up on more end-of-the-year lists for 2023. This is the kind of Souls-like we deserve and should be supporting. Something that takes some of the trappings and then does something bonkers with them. Ace Team managed to go absolutely wild and still tell a touching and earnest story about moving past your trauma and finding your song. If you like your fiction weird and earnest, Clash Artifacts of Chaos is just for you. Well, that's gonna do it for this review. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, all the normal shenanigans mean the world. Like, comment, subscribe, and share it with cool people. You can also support me by joining my Patreon or by sending one-time donations over Ko-fi, both of which are linked in the description. See you next time.